So 2025, first new video of the year. First of all, the shed has maintained pretty well over the winter, no real problems with the paint or anything. So I started thinking about what I'm going to do in the back garden, what I'm going to do here. I've already been looking at a summer house for this and they ain't cheap. Ignore the paintbrush drying there on the clothesline. It's going to cost me about 1.3, 1.4 grand for the summer house I'm looking at the back. But I'm more going to go over today about what I'm actually going to do. So on the sides here, in amongst all this mess, I'm going to have 2 flower beds on either side. So that's a total of 4 beds on within like raised wooden risers. So I have halfway up to here, then up to the end. Same on the other side. But one of the goals I've had for this garden is I don't want to do anything. Quite simply, I want to be as lazy and bone idle as possible. So I've started work on the next part. Now I've built this frame and painted it today over the course of this weekend, and this is going to be what I'm going to call as the pump house. I'll get onto that in a moment, but that's the water butt for it. So there's going to be essentially a pump inside there to water the water beds. I'm going to have a pump at the back here. If I get behind here to this brick wall, basically I'm going to have another water butt on there as well. So the summer house is feeding this water butt on this side, and then I have one on this side as well. Paint. So that's the start. I'm also thinking about what about when this overflows, because I've got no drain out here. The nearest drain I've got is coming up here on the corner of the house. So I'm thinking about a way. Of course, the train comes past right at the right time. Is at the back of the shed. I have a pipe come out up to here onto the roof, and then a pipe carrying on the roof, and then dipping in to within here. So the pump house, how's that exactly going to work? Well, here's a rough diagram of the layout, if you like, of all the pipe work and everything that I'm doing. So we've got on the left, we've got a water butt on its own, and then on the right is the water butt we saw with on the foundation I built for the pump house. The idea is quite simple. I have one pump in the pump house. Makes sense. And on that we have attached to that we have a flow meter, so we'll be able to see what's going on. Then we've got a number of valves. The pink ones are NC or normally closed. The idea being that when I switch the pump on and I energise one of the valves, which are NC, the water's going to come out of that line. I'm guessing there I'm going to need 6 across the top here. So that's 2 for the left set of beds, 2 for the right set of beds, 1 if I want like a manual output, I want to fill a watering jug or watering can or whatever, and another one for overflow. Fine. But then we've got this bit on the other side here, and I want to explain that. Now, normally it's closed, it's sealed off from the rest of the system, and as a self-test, I can switch on the pump, which will then go through the flow, through the NC, and then through this one, which is normally open. So this valve is normally open, and it will just do a return. So from that, I can test that the pump's working via the flow meter. I can verify that via software if the flow meter is running. But why have I got 2 NOs and then another flow? What I've labelled there is as a manually operated valve, another manually operated valve going into the water butt, which will be behind the summer house. Now, the idea is that with this normally closed, if the water butt behind the summer house is going to get a lot more water due to the size of the roof that's feeding it. So the idea is the water's going to want to go up here through the manual valves, across this, the double break is just distance basically, through the other valve, through a flow meter so I can watch it, and through 2 normally opened valves into the water butt for the pump house. Now, you're going to say, well, water doesn't normally want to flow uphill. That's fair enough. So the idea is, if this pipe going all the way across and back to the other one, if that pipe is full of water, then the air pressure and gravity we'll want to make the two water butts level out the water between them. So if one's high and one's low, they will balance out until they're both the same height relative to the height of the water butts, i.e. if one's much higher in terms of altitude than the other. I mean, we're only talking a couple of feet here, but if one's higher than the other, then the water's going to want to go the other direction. The only problem with that is if there's air anywhere in that line, then that will prevent the water from flowing. You'll get an air trap. So what we can do to prime the system is quite simply, we have that pump switch on, we direct it through the NC at the middle here, we close this one, so this one's disconnected. So the flow would then go through here, all the way through the garden to here. Yes, we're filling up the wrong water but we're pushing the air out. So when we switch the pump off and we leave these two normally open and this one normally closed, the water is going to want to come back, all the way back into the main reservoir. Therefore, the two water butts will remain balanced. Therefore, I can prime it if necessary. So if for some reason I need to disconnect this, the pipe in between, do some work, there'll be air trapped in there. I can reprime it with the pump pumping through this direction. And then once all the air's been closed off, just simply close that, switch the pump off, and because there'll now be full water all the way across, all the way through the piping there, then that nature will want to say if there's higher water here and lower water here, the water's going to flow in this direction. So without any energy being applied, gravity will do the work. And I believe I'm not sure if it's gravity or air pressure. I think it's a combination of the both. Will make the two systems, the two water butts have equal amount of water in them. That's assuming I keep them at the same height. There are some things I need to do on that. I've already mentioned I'm going to have 6 outlets here, so that's 2 for the beds on the left hand side, 2 for the beds on the right hand side. I want the ability to have a single point where I can actually pump it into a watering vessel of some kind. I want to water the flowers manually, which is the whole point, which is the whole point. I don't want to do this. That's the whole point of this, but if I want to, I've got that. And also the problem, if both of these are full of water to the point of they're 95% full each, I don't want them to overflow into the garden. I mean, it shouldn't really be a problem, but I want the ability to be able to drain out when necessary, which will be the last NC valve will be connected to a pipe, which will then pump it into a normal drain to get rid of the water down to a set point. I can set limits in software to say if both buckets are 95%, drain until this one's 85%, this one's 85%, at which point then this one will start feeding it back and they'll both level off at about 90, if it's 95 and 95 for each. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, I previously mentioned that the two water butts ideally will want to be the same height. You can't see because I've got the table up because I was painting earlier, but that wall at the back there is about 50 centimetres higher than the ground of the patio. I measured that over last weekend with a laser spirit level. So if I want the two water butts to be the same height, and I'm putting the water butt, shall we say, on this platform right here, then that means I need to raise this water butt to about 58 centimetres higher than the slab I'm on. So that does mean that I'm going to have to raise this up somehow, but I don't want to go too high because I want this to be lower than the actual shed itself. So back to the pump house design. In short, I'm going to have 2 pressure sensors which are denoted at the bottom of each tank here to determine how much water is in each one. I've been looking at various different methods to implement how do I check the water level. I mean, I was looking at maybe having objects which are floating inside the tank, reflecting and having some sort of either ultrasonic or some sort of laser to determine the height. There are simple, cheap, off-the-shelf solutions that do that. But the best one that I determined was basically involved using the pressure of the liquid above it. So that's what I'm going to use. We'll have a pressure sensor in both water butts, and obviously the one in the pump house is where all the electronics are going to live, but I'll have to have a second remote setting sensor in the one behind the summer house, and some form of electronics to relay that signal back to the pump house, so the pump house is able to ascertain how much water is in each reservoir, so we know what the problem is, what the depths are for each one. Additionally, you'll notice I haven't actually gone with the pipe screwing into the wall or into the bottom for both of these. I don't want to do that. Ideally, I just want the water butts themselves to remain without any holes in them, so I can just feed the pipes into the top, maybe have the cap on with holes in that, but I don't want any holes in the bottom or the side of the water butt, just in case they begin to leak, because that can cause all sorts of problems. Whereas if I leave essentially coming through the tops, I'm not going to damage the walls of the water butts themselves. I can also, where these 3 red NC valves are, I can extend that at a later date if I want to put more in, but for now I think 6 at the top will be enough. As a proof of concept regarding the 2 water butts, I've got this situation where I've got 2 pop bottles, cut the top off, filled with water, then I've got a pipe. This is 6mm, 7mm pipe, something like that. So this is the sort of thing you'd use on a fish pump for an air stone, for the air pipe for the air stone. And on the end of each pipe, I've just got a couple of washers, stainless steel washers, just taped on to hold the pipes down in place. Here we can see the water between the 2 is roughly level. So there's nothing going on, but the pipe between them is completely filled with water. Even though it's above the water level, it's completely filled with water. Then what I have here is some good old-fashioned Ribena, black currant cordial. And in theory, if I add this to one side, we should see it go through the pipe and come out in the other bottle, just due to the difference in height as a result of adding the water. So let's add this in. Oh, spilled a bit, but never mind. Oh, we've captured some air bubbles in there going round. But we can clearly see the change in colour. Is that going to make it? It should do. Yep. Okay, so we might even see the bubble. No. Oh, there we go. And we can now see that the pipe has got a slight tinge on it, and the water that's filling in, despite the fact that I spilled some below it, is now also starting to turn a slight shade. And if I was to leave this, in fact I'm going to, I shall leave my phone recording and I shall just speed this up in edits. But we should see that the right hand bottle will start to turn colour as the left hand bottle drains into the right, and eventually they'll balance out. You can actually see that it's sitting at the bottom of the pop bottle. It's not actually flowing up because the flow isn't that great. Remember, it's only a 6mm pipe, so the flow isn't that great, and the difference in pressure between the 2 as a result of the difference in height is not that great. But if we let that run for a bit, I'll take the when this is balanced out, I'll take the tube out, and I shall just give it a quick mix up to prove that it's all in there. I'm trying to get this phone balanced because I'm not going to stand here for 3 minutes watching this. I've got other things to be doing. But we can see that the height between the 2 is starting to change. Let's see if we can get a better angle on that. There we go, perfect. If I leave that for about 10 minutes, what's it, 3 minutes past now, so about 30 minutes past I shall come back, and hopefully that will have balanced out and we can see well, in fact I can see the height difference from here, but I'll let that run. Well, 19 minutes, been away longer than planned, but quite simply, I'll take these out. And I'll give that a stir. A pair of scissors, what the hell, doesn't really matter, does it? Both at the same level, and water has flowed from one to the other.